Okay, so my biggest takeaway for Mr. Burrell's semester history of China class would have to be no, what am I saying? Would easily is easily the if the effect that religion has had on China compared to the West. Now, I think that this is interesting because religion over history has is proved to be a rallying point for the different nations of the world, and it's been and people have really strong opinions about it. Like during during the Crusades, most of the wars were fought over the holy town of Jerusalem. The Christians believe that their religion helped lay claim to the city, while the Muslims believed that Jerusalem belonged to them. And and once you boil it all down, you get you get thousands of dead dead soldiers and civilians, and a deep rivalry that extends to the modern day. Now back in China, the earliest recording of a supreme deity was with Shang, which goes back to the Shang dynasty with the deity Shangdi. He really wasn't too important other than that under his belief the king was given the status of not only king but as a priest king. Like in the West, you have a king, and then a priest, two separate classes. With the You have a king and a pope. I'm sorry, a king and a pope in two separate classes, different. The king heads the government, and the pope heads the religious foundation of the civilization. But in China, the king and pope are merged into one, and so there in ancient China there was no separation of church and state. They were two of the same, and so that was what made it that much harder for the Zhou dynasty to overthrow the Shang, because what can you do against the king who is against the king slash pope? If you if you kill the king if you kill the pope king, you are a devil. Hell's you are hell's agent. You cannot excuse yourself, and the people will eventually revolt. So the Zhao a had a very spontaneous solution to that problem. They created a whole new religion sect. Yeah. So and so they got rid of the old god Shangdi and replaced him with Tian, the creator, and said that Tian would only let the most the most capable ruler, the most capable person to rule ancient China as its emperor. And so this solved the whole and Shang dynasty problem, but it also created a new problem, so that they have to prove themselves supreme now, because any other and somebody else can decide that they want power, and so Tian's invoke the mandate of heaven, invoke the mandate of heaven, which is what the Zhou called used to justify their overthrow. So the Zhou were constantly at risk of being overthrown using by their own doctrine. Now, fast forward a few years, and you see Confucius teaching familial piety and the emphasis of ritual over ritual of a religion than the actual religion itself. Now, this is interesting because I think Confucius was onto something. I mean, religion. Not. I don't. I'm not. I don't mean to blame religion, but religion is a heated topic in today's world, in and throughout history. Humans have shown that they are willing to get aggressive, if not bloody, over issues such as race, sex, gender, race, gender, religious point of views, politics. Humans are willing to go dirty on these issues. And so Confucius's idea that you shouldn't that to keep the barbarianism inside of a person in check, you need to confine it with ritual is, is extraordinary in the idea that if you take the emotion and excess thought out of an action, all you are left with is the action is efficiency, cold efficiency, and it sounds morally wrong and cold, but it works. It will work, and that's what you need from government, right? Is what you need from government is for it to work so that the people can prosper. Unfortunately, Confucius couldn't put his ideology into full effect because the officials, government officials at the time, shunned him and his ideas from and kept him away from public office. I think though that if he did hold a powerful government position, then the Zhou dynasty would have lasted much longer. Another reason why I thought the whole ideological I thought the whole ideological impact of China interested me and the most was because it provided further evidence that humans are not a case of nature. They cannot control themselves, and it's their nature to be destructive and selfish. Mr. Burrell's argument of nature versus nurture. I think that nurture, nurture by civilization, plays plays a very big role in the development of civilization and mankind. Um, Religion is a major part of cult of a of culture in a civilization. It is what sets the ethical and moral systems in a group of in a culture in civilization. We can examine the whole nature versus nurture argument by looking at the Ming Dynasty's exploration of the Indian Ocean versus the Portuguese. The Ming Dynasty, the Ming voyages, when they visited the colonies, they weren't destructive. They didn't seek to colonize and expand. China was already really big. And they didn't need to. And plus, their ideology was gentle. They didn't believe. They were. They emphasized the idea of transforming virtue. They wanted to get the people to like them. They wanted the people of the various nations to submit to them and not come together and attack them. They wanted to be loved by the world. And when you compare the nice Ming voyagers to the Europeans who came in 65 years later, you can see a stark contrast because the Portuguese, they were a lot more violent, so to speak. They demanded they demanded prizes and gifts from the people, and when they didn't get what they wanted, they wouldn't hesitate to use force and violence and intimidation in order to acquire profits. It was in and I, if you pit their ideologies against them, the Confucian ideology of betterment for the betterment of others against betterment for yourself, against compare it to the Christian ideology of, yeah, you can, it's nice to care for others, but really your ultimate goal is to get to heaven, and to get to heaven, you have to, if you need to, if in order to get to heaven you need to be a good person and be helpful to others, you'll be a helpful person. It's not because you want to help them, and it's because you have a higher goal. You want to get to heaven. You want to be looked at, you want to be favored by God, and not descend into the depths of hell. And in that sense, the culture was restrained not by ritual, but by fear. They were restrained by fear of punishment, by again by deity, by supreme deity. And in China, there is no deity. There was no deity to who would strike you down where you stand. You were restrained by rituals and the society. The society want, if you did something that was frowned upon by society, you would be shamed into you would be shamed, and your status on the social ladder would go down. Not bec and you wouldn't do something just because you want to go to heaven. You would do something because you because and this is interesting because it makes you think. Do you, are Christians really good because are Christians really good because they genuinely care for people and they want to help them, or are they good because they want to get to heaven, because they want they're only helping people because they want to be helped. They want compensation for that help. And this question that if is Christianity really is Christianity a selfish religion? It just makes you think. If if you just sit on it and do think about it, Christianity really is selfish, a selfish religion built on selfish values from a Western culture, from a selfish Western culture, a Western civilization that has a history of doing these, for lack of better words, selfish for things for selfish reasons. And I don't know what to think anymore. I don't know what to think about the West, about Europe, America, all anything to on the western side of the globe. I don't know what to think about it. China, just a beautiful. Oh, it's just like a work of art that's taken centuries to mold into what we have today. It's China right now, average growth GDP 10%. Lowest has been 8%. America, highest 3%. And right now we're going down. Capital countries, these other Western countries are going down as well. And China just continues to go up. I understand that there are a bunch of other political, economic, geographical reasons about why China is speeding ahead of the rest of the world, but I don't know. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on what I think is the most interesting idea I took from Mr. Burrell's History of China class. Thank you, Mr. Burrell.